What's going on, guys? We are here today for the first Around the Hearth with the end of Planar Crossroads in a long time that isn't about optimizing encounters and random monsters from random bestiaries forever, as much fun as that is. No, today is a special day. Today is our first ever special guest appearance. Not saying that my friends aren't special over here on the Around the Hearth with the end of Planar Crossroads. Today we are joined all the way from Coon Rapids, Minnesota by Midwest Miniatures guy. I got stuck between saying mini and figurine. Mini painter extraordinaire. Me personally, I've bought 2 of these over my career. One of them was a gift to Joe, who actually is in this chat. I bought him that giant Hero Forge mini that was painted like a statue. That was for him. And I also got a paladin who wasn't lawful good, to stir that pot a little farther, painted. Then the detail on it is so like extravagantly amazing that I knew I had to like bring this guy onto Black Dragon Gaming so you guys could meet him, because the quality is just like the best you're gonna find anywhere, in this one's humble opinion. But I digress. Tom, my man, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing tonight?
Well, we've been arguing about paladins for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Discussing.
We happened to have this come down on the same day that Paizo decided to release the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Paladin stuff, so that's all well and fun. So, Tom, what exactly is it that you do over there in Minneapolis? Tell us about yourself, that thing you do.
Well, my name is Tom Nelson. I run Midwest Miniature Guy, as Tommy's already said. I am a professional miniature painter, and I've been painting for 19 years now. I've been doing it professionally for 8. I've won some local competitions. I've sold some miniatures all over the world. Basically, people will contact me and kind of like Tommy did and say, hey, I've got this miniature. I want you to paint it. And what's the cost and how do we go about this? And we email back and forth, or we messenger back and forth, or sometimes the people will give me a call and on my cell, and we talk it out and we come up with a plan, and I can either get the miniature for them, or they send it to me, I paint it up, they pay for it, and I send it back. Right. I think the furthest that I've sent so far has been India.
Wow.
So.
And didn't you do some work for the Gygax family as well? Didn't I see that come down? I
did, yeah. I actually, I can put it up in the chat, but I don't think anybody will see it on YouTube, unfortunately. But I did do some work for Ernest Gygax Jr., Gary's oldest son. And I also did some work for Luke Gygax, specifically for GaryCon. I've done that for the last couple of years. The main one was this year, because my wife and I actually got to go to GaryCon. So to be able to meet them face to face finally, and then hand off the miniature, see it go into the auction, and have it be auctioned off for the Wooden Warrior project this year was pretty cool.
How much did it go for?
150.
Nice. And didn't I...
Which is nice. Yeah.
I think I remember seeing that was that like a custom mini that they had made for you to paint? Was that right?
Yeah, it was John Popson of Effin' Cool Miniatures 3D sculpted it, and then cast it in computer. And he sent me a copy along with a couple of other folks, and we all painted it up and either shipped it back to him, or like I said, I dropped it off by hand. And yeah, it was a super cool miniature. I'm going to get a chance here. I'm going to get back into the chat, and I can throw a picture up in it so people can see it.
Yeah, that is super cool. That's like, when I first found Midwest Miniatures Guy, it was through Hero Forge, everyone's favorite custom miniature website, and it's on their Facebook, and it was like, these were painted by Midwest Miniatures Guy, and I had in my head I wanted an artist. So 1 + 1 equals now we're doing this. And then he goes on to paint for the Gygax family. That's like, that is super cool. I'm not an artist by any means, but I am like super, super not jealous, I guess, but like it's like when your friends do something really cool. It makes you feel warm inside. So 19 years of putting miniatures together. What's the process like over there? Because like I'm looking at my samurai that you painted for me, and I'll take this over to the realm of loud microphones. I'll take this over to St. Louis, so at least like Adam can see it. Joe's already seen it.
Yeah, basic process. I mean, yours. That one was so small too, because I normally deal with between like I think it's 25 to 32 millimeter PC size miniatures, and that one was almost like 23 or 24. It was this, I was expecting a little bit bigger, especially since it was on a mount.
In my defense, I thought it was a lot bigger when I ordered it on the Kickstarter.
But no, and with it being resin too, I really wanted to be careful of the naginata, the spear that he was holding, just because it was so, you know, the resin can be really brittle. But for the most part, most of the figures that I paint are either the Reaper bones or just regular pewter figures. Normally, if I get into any of the resin stuff, it's a little bit higher quality. People want to go for like the display quality type of paint job, which could be, you know, up to, well, some people's display quality is like 80 to 100 hours. Mine is right around like probably 10 to 20. But most of the stuff that I do is between 2 to 4 hours, because I like to try and keep it relatively inexpensive for gamers that are going to be putting this on their tabletop and using it for their characters.
And you tell me you painted this thing in 2 hours? Wow. That is nuts. Like, I'll take this to St. Louis so at least Adam can see it. It is real good. It is like...
Yeah, yours took a little bit longer just because I you know, had to assemble it. I cleaned it up. I assembled it. I took a lot of the flash. That's the stuff that gets, you know, that's poking out of it, you know, on the after they pull it off the sprue, and cleaned it up, primed it, painted it. Painting was probably, I don't know, I think it was like 4 or 5 hours.
Fair enough.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, it definitely looks super good.
But,
well, we've got other people here. As always, we are joined by the Inn of Planar Crossroads. It's just Adam today, though, and Donald and Joe are here from my channel as well. If you guys, like, if you have any questions for the dude, I'll turn it over to you three.
Wow, so enthusiastic, Tommy. Thanks. So I have a question that's related to your art, of course. How did you first, like, not discover, but like, when did you first figure out that you were going to start painting? Because I've painted models before. I've painted like aircraft models with my father. I guess, how did you start? Like,
I grew up doing comic book art and was big into Batman comic books and Wolverine, X-Men, things like that. And when I got married, almost 19 years ago now, my new wife and I didn't have a whole lot of money. And at the time, miniature painting was relatively inexpensive. So you could go out and buy a figure for like $2 or $3 and go and get some hobby craft paints and some hobby brushes and just kind of slap paint and go for it. And that's kind of how I got into it. We were sitting around the kitchen table one night, and I think we were playing Magic: The Gathering. And she says, "Have you ever thought about painting minis?" I'm like, "Doing what? I've painted on canvas. We've done watercolors. I've never thought about painting figures." And so we went to our local game store and picked up some figures and took them home. We went to Walmart, I think, the next day and bought some cheap craft paints and brushes and kind of went from there. I found out another buddy of ours had done some figure painting, and he showed us some techniques, and I just kind of went nuts. I started hopping on the Reaper Miniatures forum, learning different techniques, besides just, dry brushing and stuff like that. And I went full bore into it. I just really wanted to get better at it. I wanted to make the figures that I had look like some of the figures that these professional painters were doing on the Reaper forums and on their own web pages and things like that. So I started asking a lot of questions and just kind of did like what they call a deep delve, basically, into miniature painting. And this is before YouTube, or I guess YouTube was maybe coming out within like a couple of years from there, and people were putting up some of their own videos on painting minis, but it was like a guy in his basement with one light, and it was really dark, and you could barely see what he was doing. And now you've got painters like Marique Reimer and Jen Haley and Laszlo Jakubowski and a bunch of others that are out there that have done fantastic miniature painting videos, and they're nice and bright, and you can see what they're doing, and the figures look huge on the screen. You can really tell what colors they're using and how the technique they're using. And that's basically how I got into it. After a few years, I think it was like 2008, 2010, something like that. I had lost my job and wanted to, I needed to have some income coming in. And I'd sold some minis on eBay, and I'd done some work for some local guys. And I was like, all right, fair enough. I'm going to make a Facebook page and we'll see how it goes. And I was excited when I got my first 100 fans. I was like, woohoo, 100 people like what I do. And now, after 8 years of doing this professionally, working with the Gygaxes, Tim Kask, also from the old TSR days, the word of mouth has gotten around. Going to my local convention here in Minnesota called Con of the North, here in Plymouth. If you guys ever get a chance to come up here and go to that con, it's a lot of fun. Word of mouth has just kind of exploded, and I think I'm up to like 1,772 people on the Facebook page, and I've got more minis that I have time to paint. There was a guy out in, I think it's Connecticut or Maine or something like that has literally sent me 2 or 3 giant boxes full of figures, and he just said, let me know when they're done.
Damn.
That's probably both a glad day and a oh no day.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I sent him a message after they showed up. I'm like, you said you were sending me a box. He's like, yeah. Oh, that's the box that I was going to send you. I'm like, there are 144 miniatures in this thing.
A box, but maybe not a Christmas tree box.
So I was like, oh my gosh. And yeah, when I totaled everything all up and sent him the cost, I'm like, we can do this in batches so it doesn't break your bank. He's like, I don't know, I'm not worried about it. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's the type of customer you need.
Oh yeah, for
right.
sure.
Like, oh, so you're my new patron. Got it. Okay. I don't need a Patreon page. I just have this guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I got Cassiori painted, I was in line behind somebody who wanted like his whole Warhammer army painted or something like that. Just, okay, I'll wait for 18 months. It wasn't that long. The turnaround time is not that bad.
Yeah.
But
no. I once I finally start, get them back in the queue, I try to, get them painted within about a week and get them sent out as fast as I can, because I know people are waiting for their figures. But, when somebody sends me 200 figures, I'm like, okay, I'm doing these in batches because I have other people that I'm painting for, and some people will send me the single figure, and other people will send me 5, and other guys are nuts and send me 100. So I'll kind of I have to and they're all different too. Some of them can be sci-fi, some of them are fantasy, some of them are spaceships, some of them are monsters. It's just this
some of them are the
plethora. Yeah, some of them are like little halflings on a lion, and
The Big Lebowski. I definitely remember seeing that come down on your Facebook. Just like, who wanted that? Who wanted the Big Lebowski? What game are they playing?
Mal.
Someone who's really
Mal
cool.
wanted the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, that sounds like a Mal. Yeah, for sure.
I actually grabbed that photo too, so I could show you guys because he was freaking awesome.
It was.
If you play D20 more, I don't play
The dude abides. The natural
Stranger
20.
in the Alps.
Yeah.
Donald, you there?
Yes. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When it comes to paints, to James. So when it came to paint brands, what do you use? I know
Brands of paint, I think is what he said. Is it?
Yes.
Brands of paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, you know, it really comes down to different preferences. I started off with Delta Ceramcoat hobby paints, and I've moved to Reaper Master Series paints. I've got Vallejo Model Color, Citadel Game Workshop paints, and Army Painter paints. There's a few other brands out there that I'd like to actually give a shot. I think the Scale 75s, from what I hear from other painters, are super smooth and are really great for blending. And they come in like sets. So it'll be like the skin set, the metal set, the camo set, the monster set, you know, things like that.
Sure.
Which is kind of cool. I just saw that Army Painter is coming out with its official Dungeons and Dragons paint color set.
Nice.
And I'm like, that sounds interesting, but I don't know if I want to go and pick it up yet. We'll see.
So if you get that like $30 box of Reaper paints that you can get that comes with like, when I bought it, it was like an orc warrior and a skeleton, and I told myself I was going to learn how to paint. This is before you came into my life, but I told myself I was going to learn how to paint, and then I ended up giving it to a friend for Christmas. But is that good bang for your buck? Do you think it runs about like, I think it was like $30-$35?
Yeah, those are great, especially for the beginner painters. The Learn to Paint kits that Reaper puts out, because they do come with a couple of figures. They come with the paints that they coincide with the figures. I think it's like 1 or 2 brushes or something like that as well, and then your painting guide. So yeah, I think it's a kind of a cool deal for beginner painters to pick stuff up like that. In fact, I'm a big Reaper fan. I really like their product. But then those are the beginner sets that I think are perfect. So I kind of push those a lot. I don't even work for Reaper. I'm like, no, buy this. These are great.
I have definitely spent a lot of like my early days on ReaperMini.com. Just, I'm looking for a male this, who's from this setting, and wields of that, and just scrolling through forums when I had, well, not forums, but like lists, when I had a lot of disposable income. Just, yeah, I'll take that. Bones is putting out Witch Dragon, and it's only $20? Yeah, you take my money. Ship it to my house.
Oh, yeah.
It's real good.
Yeah, and especially with some of those dragons, I remember when they first came out, I'm like, $75? I don't know if I'm going to, fork that over. That's a pretty cool dragon, though. And then, the Bones came out. I'm like, $20? That I can do.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to pull off. And they still look just as good. I imagine even more so when they get painted. Because I imagine it's a lot easier to paint the bones than it is to paint like a big old pewter thing.
God, a couple of years ago, I painted up the old Hearth Tachesis, Queen of Darkness, 5-headed dragon, basically Tiamat, but it was based in Dragonlance.
Yeah, yep.
And that thing was a monster. It was all pewter. The body itself was hollow, and then the rest you had to put the heads on it, put the tail on it, and glue it onto the base. And the thing took me hours and hours just to get it assembled and gap filled and all that. But yeah, you grab one of these Bones figures now, and it's like, put the head on, put the wings on. It's already on the base. Go, and you're good. Or sometimes they already come pre-assembled too, and you just gotta. I use a hair dryer if like some of the pieces are super bent, and you bend them back in their form, and then you just let them cool as you're holding on to them, and they tend to stick the same shape that you've kind of molded them into.
Yeah, I think I remember we bought, I think it was a Baylor, the Reaper Bones Baylor, yeah, and that came in like 5 or 6 pieces, and I was just like blown away because the Hydra was just like, put his leg on, all right, you're good, here's your Hydra. Don't put it all, like, I ended up putting the Hydra's leg like cocked up a little, so he walks a little funny, but it was definitely super sweet.
A Baylor with a limp.
Yeah.
One of my favorite paint brand, if I need to go for a very expensive model, it is Sigil, especially for the Warhammer 40k models that I like.
Yeah, I've seen some, like, I definitely don't know as much about the paints and stuff as like Tom would, but I've seen Citadel paints advertised, like go to a local game store, there they are, that kind of thing.
He kind of broke up. I didn't catch all of what he was saying, but yeah, the Citadel, the Games Workshop, Warhammer 40k paints. They have so many different types because they'll have like these are your base coats, and these are your highlights, and these are your technical paints that you can use for creating dirt or rust or whatever. And then they just came out, I think, within like the last year of, it's a thicker paint that you use to create bases. So you use your brush and you paint it onto your plastic base or whatever before you get the or after you get the model on it, and it's already its own color. You can shape it. And then once it's dry, you can dry brush over it with other paints. So they're getting really technical. There's also weathering powders that are out there as well. I know that James Waffle is big on using stuff like that. I think they're from MIG. I've got some here, and I'm just waiting. I'm looking for a model to use them on that I can kind of go nuts on it and see how it looks. But I don't want to use it on a client's figure yet because I want to get used to actually using it before I try it on somebody else's. Use it on one of my own first.
For sure. Gotta make sure you get that blood for the blood god right.
So if you have someone that's looking on Hero Forge or stuff like that, and they're wanting to send you something to paint, what material do you usually recommend them to use?
I always recommend the high detail. I think they call it their gray material, but it comes out more black. That is the material that I definitely prefer painting on. I've got quite a few sitting on my desk right now that are that material, and you don't see the print lines as much. It's a smoother material. It takes the primer that I use very well, and I can blend on it. It's a superior material that they use, rather than their lower price point of the white material, or even their clear material. I don't even know if they have that anymore. They've been changing their material up quite a bit lately.
They have. You can no longer get the gigantic mini that I had painted for Joe a long time ago, and that bums me out because I wanted one for myself.
Yeah.
But
they got rid of the giant minis.
You can do the 2x one still, but you can't do the big ol' one.
Gotcha. Yeah. I do like the fact that they're coming out with some newer things that you can throw on them now. They got some new sci-fi weapons and outfits and whatnot.
I've definitely lost.
Cool. I think.
Good.
No, I say it's been pretty cool. I like going on there and just creating weird characters, and even characters that I've kind of thought of in my head from book series that I've read. I go onto Hero Forge and kind of create what you think they look like. Okay, in the book it says they have long hair and it's kind of braided and a beard, and he wields a long sword, but he also has a dagger, and so you can kind of mix and match. And kind of come up with the characters that I've read about, and so that's been kind of fun.
Yeah, I've definitely spent way too much time just, Hero Forge got a new thing out. Okay, let's make 16 minis that I'm never going to buy, ever, but I'll save them right here.
Yeah.
Or worse, oh, the Egyptian set's out? I can actually do this character right. Edit everything that I'll never purchase. Yeah, there's an Egyptian one out. They came up with something not too long ago that you could, like, I guess you're supposed to hook it on the GM screen. That just sounds dangerous to me, to be honest. That's a recipe for something is going to fall over and break. But they have it.
Oh, yeah, where you can actually put it up on the DM screen.
Yeah, that just sounds super terrifying. Be freaking out the whole time, just no!
Yeah, I don't know if I'd spend $30 on something to put on a DM screen that's so flimsy that it's just gonna fall over when somebody sneezes.
For sure.
Yeah. So, with the advent of 3D printing, how has that affected your painting? I figure that people printing their own minis might have, like talking about the material, might have effects with the paint and such.
I haven't noticed too much things that affect the paint for 3D printing. The only thing that I can think of is, like, the Hero Forge stuff is pretty good. Like, the lesser quality, I don't mind painting it, but I always felt like it was like watercolor paper. I like to use thin paints and right to about the consistency of milk, because I can really get nice blends that way. But that lesser quality, it would acted like paper. I could put a dot of paint on one section and it would fill up about half the figure. I noticed it with one figure that this guy sent to me, and it was a Hydra that he'd had 3D printed of his own design and wanted it for a board game that he was developing. And I ended up painting it up for him in the cardstock art that he'd had. I tried to get it as close as I could to that, but boy, it didn't matter if I had sealed it or, you know, put other paint on it and then sealed it or whatever. It just seemed like it would just soak the paint right into the figure, and the blending on it, I'm going to be really blunt, it sucked. It was probably one of the hardest things to try and blend and paint on. I guess I like the harder plastics. I don't mind the bone stuff. But if anybody, 3D prints their own figure, I'll paint just about anything. It's just going to take maybe a little more extra time on that figure due to the way that the material reacts to the paint. Some of the clearer Hero Forge, when I was doing that, I had to actually seal those with either a brush-on sealer or a spray-on sealer, because the plastic itself was like oil and water. I could put paint onto it and it would just drip right off. And that was after washing some of the material off of it and just cleaning it up in general. Because even if you're handling a figure, you're going to get your finger oils and things like that on it, and that won't let the paint stick on the figure then either. So you got to wash them up first and then paint them. But boy, the clear ones, I had to seal those first, and then the white plastic ones were like watercolor paper, just soak the paint right in.
Fair enough. I think that might have been the one on Hero Forge, at least for a little while, that, like, this is the easiest to paint and has okay detail and won't break. Because, like, the black plastic ones, they're really, really nice detail, but it's not hard to break those at all. We learned that the hard way when we ordered our first Hero Forge minis.
Yeah, I'm working on a Samurai right now, and the helmet, he's got two helmets, one's sitting on the ground and one's on his head, and the one sitting on the ground I figure would be the one that would break the first, but It was actually the one he's got on his head that has a little horn thing that's broken off. And I think that happened in transit. I was looking through the bag that he came in, and I couldn't even find the piece to glue it back on. So,
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he's battle scarred.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah,
it is.
it's a battle mark now for sure.
So a lot of these terms like are going way over my head. Not that like I don't know anything about mini painting, but I wouldn't like if you told me a week ago that like the mini would like soak up the paint. I'd be like, what dark magic is this? No, paint goes on it and then it is a color. Haha. That's how little I know about this and how this is why we come to you for all of our help and stuff. So I guess my next question would be, do you have any advice out there for like the beginners, the up and comers, those of us who might like wander over to Midwest Miniature Guys Facebook page, which by the way will be in the in the doodly-doo in the description, and think I could do that. I want to try to do this thing. Any advice for those guys?
It kind of broke up there a little bit. What was the question?
Oh boo! I was asking if you had any advice for the new guys, like people who aspire to do this professionally.
Sure. I think there's three things that I always tell beginner painters. Number one is wash the figure. Number two, learn how to dry brush well. That's one of the simplest technique that you can get down. It works great for fur, works great for hair, works great for metals. You can do it for, wood. And then the third one is, I guess probably four. The third one is deeper shadows, higher highlights. You're working on something, yes, it's 3D, but we want to make those colors pop. And then the fourth one is have fun. Don't worry about being great your first figure. I've been at this, like I said, for almost 19 years now. And there are still things that I have to go back and either watch or read or talk to somebody and go, how did you do that? Because I still haven't figured it out yet. So don't worry about being great. Yeah.
On that note, to tie into what Tommy's asking, are there any kind of other YouTube channels or other blogs or materials that you find are good places to get said information?
Yeah, the Reaper forums are great because you have a lot of different levels of painters there, and if you want to get really good comments and critiques, I think that's the friendliest place to go. Because nobody is going to be like, oh, that sucks. They're going to see, if you ask for comments or you ask for any kind of critiquing, and people will say, okay, do you really want to know, or do you just want to, if you want to get better, we'll tell you. And if they say, yeah, I actually really want to get better, they will start nitpicking a little bit and tell you what you can do to get better. But again, I think that's the friendliest place. Otherwise, if you're looking for any kind of inspiration or any other tutorials, it's a self-serving plug. Go to Midwest Miniature Guy on Facebook. I've got written tutorials there. You can also find me on YouTube. I think it's YouTube.com/Midwest Miniature Guy, or however it shows up. You can do a search for me. And I've got probably 7 or 8 videos. One series, I think it's a 5-video series where I take a necromancer all the way from bare metal to finished product. And it's, washing the miniature, shining it up, making it look nice even before I start painting it, and then putting the primer on it, and then doing the base coats. And so it's like I said, it's about these 5 or 6 videos of the different steps. James Wapple is a fantastic Warhammer and Mirror's Miniatures and bolt action painter. I think his blog is Helios blog at blogspot.com or something like that. You can also find his Facebook page at Windy City Miniatures. Boy, and there's so many others out there. Jen Haley, I think, has a page. She actually works for Cool Mini or Not, and does some really great videos. Go to Dark Sword Miniatures, because Jim Ludwig, he's actually a buddy of mine because we both live here in Minnesota, and Dark Sword Miniatures is actually based out of Minnesota. So if you ever take a look at the figures that he's been putting out for like the past 12 years, I mean, he's got stuff from Game of Thrones and Larry Elmore and Jeff Easley and Keith Parkinson and a few others that they've taken their artwork and turned it into figures, and the sculptors that they've got doing those for him are fantastic. But he's sat down with Marie Reimer and Jen Haley and Ann Forster and a few other painters, and have produced some fantastic videos on how to paint miniatures. And I think Ann and Jen sat down and did one that was specifically for beginner and intermediate painters. And then Jen did one that was just all advanced techniques that went from like glazing and different washes and different basing and light sources and object source lighting and things like that. And watching her paint was just awesome. That's one of the videos that I actually picked up. Another place to go is miniaturementor.com, and they strictly do miniature painting and miniature sculpting videos, and they get the guys from Europe that paint, and those were the first 4 videos that I actually went and bought. Actually, I think I got them for Christmas. And it was how to paint white, how to paint black, true skin tone, and then non-metallic metal. And I still go back to those videos. Even if I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do this again? Because I've been, you paint so long, you just you get into a flow of using the same skin tone over and over again sometimes. And you want to do something a little bit different. Maybe you're doing like an African skin tone or an Asian skin tone or a South American skin tone or different shades of Caucasian skin tone. Maybe you're doing tan skin, or maybe you're doing a Viking skin. He's lighter, different lighter skin color or whatever. And there's all these other different extremes too, of even African and Afro-Cuban skin tones.
For sure.
I could go on and on.
On the subject of lighting, I have to say, it's been a little while now when the almighty figure was taken from your banner on your Facebook page. It was replaced with those Star Wars guys. My first thought when that came up was, why is the Emperor blue? That doesn't make any sense. What's going on here? And then I realized that's his force lightning reflecting back on him. And that was I was blown away once I realized, like, oh, that's what that is. He's not just, this guy's blue today, haha.
Right, yeah. And I tried to get it a little bit on his face, too, but his face was always, I already had painted it kind of gray, so the blue doesn't show up too well on that. But, his hands and up onto the arms of his robe, I really wanted that to kind of stand out and make it look like the force lighting, because he didn't actually have the force lighting coming out of his hands, but I wanted to make it look like he had maybe just gotten done or was about to do it or something. And that's that object source lighting. So that the effect is coming from his hands and moving up the cloak, and that's why the back of the cloak is the dark gray.
Fair enough.
And the front is more blues.
Yeah, it was really cool for sure. Oh, Joe, Donald, you still out there? We haven't heard a lot from you guys. Awkward silence. Nope, okay, they're there. I hear somebody clicking. I can't see Discord because I have OBS open.
Yeah, I came in. Joe is not here right now. He's busy.
Oh, Joe left.
So
there's the
I guess
dude.
I have a question. Do you get to actually, with all of your time being consumed with the mini painting, do you actually get to play with the minis that you paint, or is it, if so, what systems do you like to play in?
I do actually. We have a dedicated game night every Thursday that we've been playing with the same group of guys now. My wife has been doing it with these same guys before I moved over here for over 20 years, and I've been with them now for 19. We've lost a couple members. They've either moved away. One of the guys actually passed a little over 10 years ago. So that was kind of hard on our group because he was also he was a good friend of ours, and we still miss him. But yeah, every Thursday night, the guys come over and we play a lot of different games. From Second Ed, AD&D, Pathfinder we've gotten into, World of Darkness, either Vampire the Masquerade or Mage. Another buddy of ours, he's kind of our dedicated Middle-earth role-playing system guy. He likes running that. And then some people will just bring in, some crazy stuff that have been like, hey, I found this on, not even on a Kickstarter, I found this for free on PDF. The guy said, just steal it. And, and we've tried some of those games. So yeah, we get to use a lot of the figures that I've painted over the last few years. And a lot of the players in our games and our game night have, custom figures from me that I've done for them, and some of them actually customized. I think I've got one here. The guy was playing a half-orc barbarian shaman kind of a guy. I'll throw him up on the chat here just to show you. He was holding a giant two-handed sword, and I cut it out, and I put an axe into the hand. And then he had a kind of a weird, I don't know, flag type of a thing on his back. And I know that the guy didn't have that, but he used a strength bow. And so I cut that all down, and I found an old plastic bow from a Warhammer skeleton, and I glued that onto the back and created this custom figure for the guy. Put him on a nice base and built them all up. And
nice. That is actually...
went from there.
That's the iconic War Priest, if I'm not mistaken, from Pathfinder, because he had that giant sword. Yeah, that's the guy who worships Gorham.
Yep.
That is that iconic character.
Yes, it is.
Tom, I have a question. When it comes to the business model, so do you just have a flat rate for charging people?
That's a great question. I actually charge $15 per hour of work. With a minimum of 2 hours. When I first started, I think I was charging $10, and then I went up to $12 an hour, and now it's $15. It's just been with the amount of workload that I've got and the prices of the materials that I use have gone up a bit. So, and just the experience that I have now in painting miniatures, I thought I could kick it up a little bit, and I thought, I might lose, a couple customers. I've actually gained more customers. So it's like people are like, oh, he charges more, he must be better. I don't know. I know some other figure painters that they'll charge like $200 for a single figure, but they're going to put in a ton amount of work into it. And then for me, if I'm going to put in that much work, I don't want to see it on a tabletop gaming, room. I want to see it on a shelf. I want a lot of the figures that I paint, I want to see on the tabletop. I want to see that the gamers and the players are using these either as their characters or as their NPCs or something. So that's kind of my price point there is $15 an hour, 2 hour minimum, and then anything else that you guys want me to do any freehanding or extra detail work or anything like that, that's when the extra hours get added onto it.
So now I have to say that I'm curious exactly, like, when you painted my samurai, what, like, and I'm not, this is not me to like, oh, it costs too much, I will drive to Coon Rapids. That's not what we're getting at. But, like, how much cost what on this particular figure, just, like, for my own curiosity?
Yeah, again, that was, because I also add in the time it takes to clean and prep and assemble the figure if I need to. So that's kind of what went into some of that. And then just the painting of it. Like I said, I probably took a couple of hours just to kind of clean and prep it. And then probably another 4 or so went into the painting of it.
Fair enough. Yeah, this guy came, like, right off a Kickstarter from, I think it was Poland. I don't quite remember, but I remember seeing it and, like, I need that, and I'd like it painted. And now it is here, riding around the tabletops of Tommy Gaddy's house.
Yeah.
So if
that mini that's that Goramite orc mini makes me wonder, do you do your own bases? Like, that's a very nice looking base. Do you do your own bases, or did you find that base somewhere, or how's that go?
The hex base I had, and then I glued him onto that plastic base, and then I created the rest of it around him. So a lot of that is painted sand and grass tufts and things like that. I actually have a couple different grades of sand that I use. I've got some coarse stuff and I have some real fine sand. And then I've really found that the Army Painter grass tufts have been fantastic for adding in foliage and flowers and things like that on the bases. I've also got just some regular green flock that I'll use. My father-in-law is a model railroader, and he's got a ton of stuff that he and I like to share back and forth. So he'll
Sounds
use
like
some
you
of the
kind of married into this whole miniature painting thing.
I did, yeah, I guess, to an extent. I've been a role player for over 20 years or more now. I think I started when I was about 14 or 15. Originally from the Seattle area, and was playing with a group of people out there. When I moved over here, yeah, I just I kind of slipped right into my wife's gaming group, and she brought up the mini stuff, and I kind of went with it. She got into more. She was painting figures with me for a while, and she didn't want to get as involved as I did, and she went more into dice collecting. So if you ever see her posting on stuff, it's all dice. It's crazy. She's got, and hers isn't a huge collection compared to some folks, but for us, I mean, I think she's got like 1,800 dice or something like that in a giant pirate's chest.
that sounds like a huge collection of dice. Yeah, it's not that big.
Yeah.
It's just 1,800 dice. That's all.
Yeah, she got mentioned and her photos in the old Gygax magazine when it was out.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, for sure. Do you ever, like, has that a client or maybe even like your wife, have they ever brought up the concept of like painting dice? Have you ever done anything like that?
I'm sorry, any what?
Painting dice.
Painting dice?
Yeah.
I painted a couple of figures that had them holding dice before.
Sounds like Hero Forge.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of Hero Forge that had them holding the 20-sider. I just got done painting a dice box. That was kind of cool. It had a giant dragon on it. I think I grabbed that one here as well. I can throw that up on there.
Oh, Tommy, you know what that means? You know what that means? We need to get somebody to make us a mini of Dodie, and we roll our dice in it.
Oh God, that mimic.
Yeah.
Dodie Dodie is a character from one of our games.
And we had
Gotcha.
long story. You can, if you ever if you're into watching live play, that was though something in the dark. Adam, what's it titled? I'm brain farting. It's over on the end of Planar Crossroads.
Investigations in the Dark.
Investigations in the Dark, where I play a fighter who likes to take drugs. I mean the alchemist mutagen, but.
And then Dodie first appeared in the 9 Guilds, but I haven't uploaded that one on our Way Back Wednesdays yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
Gotcha.
So what is, right now in your schedule, if, I'm going to put this up on Saturday morning, I think. If somebody were to, get a hold of you, and again, guys, if you'd like to get really, really good, really quality on the subject of terrain, I didn't realize I wanted my samurai to have a bunch of grass and rocks and stuff at his feet until I saw it, and it's amazing. But if you'd like it, if you want a really quality figure and they want to get a hold of you, right now, what's the turnaround time looking like?
Turnaround time right now is about a month, which right now is pretty quick. Some of the stuff I've got on my desk, thankfully, is long-term projects. I don't really have too many short-term ones right now. The ones that I've got, some of them, for the most part, don't need to be done until October, which is kind of nice because it's a group of town folks. And of course, the guy that sent me the 2 huge boxes of figures is just again, when they get done, let me know. So if it's single figures or a couple of figures, normally I can have them done within a couple of weeks and then get them back to you. If it's anything more than that, it's going to be probably about a month or more. I'm not really in the... I can't say that I don't like to do them. I'm not a huge fan of doing army painting. I've done a bunch of bolt-action Russians and U.S. paratroopers, and of course the obligatory, Warhammer Space Marines, which were all red, white, and blue patriotic Space Marines with the stars on the shoulders and all that. Which for me, it gets a little boring because it's oh yay, more blue, or yeah, more green.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds super tedious.
Oh,
30 guys! They look exactly the same. Whee!
Yay! Yeah.
They're just supposed to look exactly the same. You could probably vary up the uniforms a little. This guy has dirt on this part or something. Just to keep yourself sane.
You gotta get that blood for the blood god. Again, that's my only Warhammer knowledge.
Yeah, a lot of the Space Marines, unfortunately, they all kind of look the same, especially when they all want, it's blue armor with a white helmet or whatever. But I don't mind it. It's definitely helped out. For me, one of the reasons, like I said, one of the reasons that I started Midwest Miniature Guy was because I was out of a job and I needed extra money coming into the house, and so. Now it's, I don't use the extra money to go on wild, crazy vacations or anything like that. It actually goes to, I get to pay the car payment this year or this month. It's, hey, we get to put some away and actually save it for, whatever. So it's really helped out the family. I can't say this enough. I love the people that I paint for. Some of them become really good friends of mine. And they have been fantastic supporters of what I do and the art that I put out, and the page. The more that MMG grows, the more I'm able to, hopefully for myself, I actually start putting out some better videos. I'm looking at getting some better equipment to be able to do that. So you guys can keep your eye out for that, either on the Facebook page or on the YouTube channel as well. So that's what I'm looking at further along the lines. I'm looking at James Wapple and what he's doing, and another friend of mine here in Minneapolis and what he's doing. It's I want to be able to do that. I just need to build up the funds and purchase the equipment that needs to be purchased, and then I can do that same thing. And it's not that I wanted to, I'd love to be able to take this and do it full time. I'm still working a full-time job now, and still have family obligations that I have to do, and I play in an Irish rock band. I play drums in that, so I'm busy. I head downstairs, after about 8 or 9 o'clock, and I get about 4 or 5 hours of painting in, and then pass out and get up at 6:30 and go to work. So,
yeah, I mean,
if it was my full-time job, it'd be great.
You and me both. Yeah, I understand. I don't play in an Irish rock band, but back in the day, I played in metal bands. Actually, we went to Minneapolis to a metal show up at the Skyway. This was in like 2014. It seems like the scene in Minneapolis is much nicer to the bands than these, based off what I saw at the Skyway, like compared to out here in Kansas City. But that's a whole different conversation for sure. Oh, so we're sitting at. Go ahead, Adam.
I just got one quick question. With the way you edited your figure, your orc figure, do you edit others' figures like that too? If they send you bits and pieces saying, "Oh, I like this guy, but I want this shield, or I want this sword, or that I'm sending also, or something."
Yeah, I can always, customize figures that way. It all kind of depends on what they want. If they say, cut the sword off and put a spear in, or an axe or a bow or something like that, I can. If I have something in my bits bin, I can use that. If not, I can always kind of cannibalize another figure that I have and use weapons from there. Or if they send me, the shield or the sword or whatever. I know that there was a guy a couple of years ago that wanted to do. It was a Disney-themed role-playing game that he was running, and so he needed like a custom Captain Hook, and he did the dumb guy from Emperor's New Groove.
Kronk?
Whatever. Yeah, Kronk. Yeah. So I ended up finding figures for him that would work and customizing those. And some of it was like taking off a hand to, drill into it and create a hook hook of it. And for Captain Hook, there was another one that was Kronk, who was basically just a big barbarian that I found, where I chopped the sword off and created a little like beanie hat for the top of his head and drilled into his head to put the little antenna thing on it or whatever it was. And there was one other. Oh, he wanted a Captain Hook that looked like the Hook from Once Upon a Time, the TV show. And that one I ended up like chopping the head off of it and finding a head that I had in my bit bin that fit perfectly on the neck that I had chopped off, and yeah, it ended up working out pretty well. So I think I've got that up on the MMG page as well, of just the process that they went through. I did a whole work in progress thing of it and what they look like before and what they look like after.
Paging Dr. Frankenstein. I need a mini.
Oh yeah, totally. It's alive.
Fair enough. Donald, do you have anything to add real quick? Any more questions you might want to ask before we jump out of here?
Nope. I was going to ask what his hours were like when it came to painting, but he answered it already.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, you'd probably get yours a lot soon. I don't know. What part of Canada do you live in again, Donald, rather? I forget.
You
live in Ontario, isn't that right?
Yes. I live close to Toronto, so it's not an issue for me to get my minis.
You could just drive to Minneapolis.
Yeah, I'll meet you at the border. It's we just say, Minnesota, just southern Canada.
Yeah. You want some cheese or no? No, I've been to Minnesota. Minnesota's a nice place. Probably had the best, pizza sub. I don't remember. It's like an Irish bar restaurant in downtown Minneapolis. I don't remember what it's called, but it was really good. Anywho, I suppose we're basically at time. Yeah, we don't have to go for 5 million hours like we did for the encounter designs, getting every single monster in for sure. So I guess here's where we're going to sign off. Again, Tom, thank you so much for coming, hanging out with us. It's Midwest Miniatures Guy on Facebook and apparently on YouTube. I didn't know you were on YouTube. I'll have to check that out. Links to the Facebook, links to the YouTube will be down in the description. If you need a miniature painted, this is your guy right here. As always, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos, guys. We'll see you next time. Say bye, guys.
Hey, thanks for everything, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Where you at, Donald?
Bye.